Today I'm going to show you how to put together the elastic waist dress. This is a really good one for beginners. It's a little bit easier. So the first thing I want to show you, on the pattern there's a line about halfway through, and I just took some sewing chalk, you could use a marker, whatever, and I traced that line onto the back of my fabric. This is the wrong side, not the part we'll see. So that when I sew that elastic in, I have a really nice line to follow. That's going to make it a lot easier later on, okay? So to start, I'm going to take my two back pieces and I'm going to put them right side together. And we're going to put a little button closure up here at the top. So just below this armhole line, to make sure they can get into it nice and easy. So just kind of follow that over right around there, maybe a little bit underneath. That is where we're going to sew this back part together. So leave this top part open for now, and we're going to sew this way down. I'll go ahead and close up on my machine a little bit. And all of my patterns are made for a 1/2 inch stitch. Make sure you do a couple back stitches at the beginning and at the end. I just want to make sure all my edges are lined up really nice. Cut those threads off. There we go. Okay. And then we're going to switch over to a rolled hem foot. They look like this. Let me focus on that. There we go. So this is what they look like. On this end you can kind of see this causes it to roll under. So I'm going to put that in my machine and just snap in. They are fantastic if you've never used one before. And I'm going to use that to go around all of my neck edges. You want the wrong side of the fabric up. All you're going to do is turn this over just a little bit, and I like to use my fingernail and crease that just a touch. And with that folded over, make sure your needle's in the center position for these. Put the needle down. The foot is still up. Let me see if I can get even closer to that. Okay, so the foot is up. I'm going to wiggle the fabric up into the foot. It might go real easy, sometimes it takes a second. And then put the foot down, and then we just sew right around. But hands down, this is the easiest way to hem anything. And it gives you such a nice edge. And even on curves, well, let's see, I'm going to zoom out so you can see this. Even on a curve, you get a really nice edge. You don't have to snip everything along the curve. It saves quite a bit of time. Just iron it good and it'll lay nice and flat. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, just fold that fabric just a little bit. I like to crease it with my thumb. I'm going to put the needle down and leave the foot up. And then hold the fabric straight up and just kind of guide it into the foot. And then we're going to go right along. Again, so easy, so quick. These rolled hems are perfect for, I think, any level of sewer. Look how nice that is. And I didn't have to snip all the edges to make it turn. Alright, so now the necks are sewn. I'm gonna do the neck on the front bodice now, all the way around. Same thing, I want the wrong side of the fabric up. Turn it over, crease that with my thumb just a touch. And I'm only turning it over like 1/4 of an inch. Needle down, foot up, guide the fabric in. And we do those edges before we sew everything together because we try to do as much flat as we can. If we sewed everything together and then tried to do the neck hole with it attached to everything else, it's just a lot less flat. The flatter the surface, the easier it is to sew on. Okay, so now that those curves are done, I'm going to switch back to my regular foot. And I'm back on the back of the dress. So this opening we created in the top, we're just going to iron that along the seam. So let me do that real quick. Okay, so look how nice that looks. And I'll show you the back side where I ironed everything. All I did was iron that seam open and then keep ironing it open all the way up to the top there. So now I have something nice to sew along. So all I'm going to do, you can do this on the right side or the wrong side of the fabric. I'm going to go on the right side of the fabric. And I know you can measure how much this is folded back, but it should be 1/2 inch since your seam was 1/2 inch. So we're going to sew at about 1/4 of an inch. Starting at the top. We're just going to go all the way down. Make sure you back stitch. Okay. Ooh, I'm a little bit caught here. Fix this. My fabric just got a little bit jammed. I think the thread is wrapped around my foot a little. There we go. There we go. And I like to just come right down to this point. So right on down to the seam. I'm going to stick my needle right into the seam there. Let me see if I can show you. You can kind of see that. See, look how it's right in that seam. And then I pick the foot up. So, wow, my camera just got really dark. Let me zoom back out and see if that'll change. There we go. That looks better. Wow, I don't know why that happened. But now it all comes to is this really nice corner. And we're just going to go back up the other side. Everything's nice and even. And again, ironing that first really makes a huge difference with how nice all your edges line up, and it's just going to look a lot better in the final outcome when you do those little steps like that. All right. Here we are. Okay. So, now we have, here's the back. The two pieces are stitched together. We have our separation, that is stitched down. The neck is stitched. Here on the front, the neck is stitched as well. Very nice. And we're going to sew our shoulder seams. So right sides together. Line up the shoulders. And here, this will be a good example. Okay, so see how this edge doesn't line up. Don't line it up on this edge because we haven't actually sewn that edge yet. We did finish this side. So our two finished sides, sorry. We need to line up the finished edges, okay? So sew right along that. Again, 1/2 inch seams. We're just gonna go over and do the same thing on the other shoulder. Line up the finished edges. My voice is starting to go out a little bit. Okay, now the shoulders are sewn together. Okay, we're actually going to go ahead and put the elastic in now in the waist. We want to do this while it's flat, again, because once we close it up, we have to sew that elastic in a circle, and that's going to be really tricky to do. So if we do it while it's flat, all we have to do is sew this straight line across, and it's much, 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 much easier. So, you know what, let me get my elastic out. I forgot to pull that out. I'm just using like 1/2 inch elastic today. Now for this part, you can actually measure around your child if you want. Otherwise, this width is about 1.5 times their waist measurements. So if you take this and like fold it into 3 and then let go, so you have 2/3 of it, that should be about what their waist is. So I'm gonna cut right about there, and I'm gonna make another one of those the same length for the front while I'm already messing with it. If you want to see that again. So hold it out to the full length of the waist of this dress, and it's 1.5 times. So take your 2 edges you're holding and just so that there's 3 of them, and then this part with the tail, let go of that and cut about there. Okay, otherwise again, just measure your kid if they're, or if whoever you're sewing it for is nearby, you can just measure them. We're going to change to a zigzag stitch. And we're going to lengthen it a little bit and widen it just a touch. Okay, so let's see, let me go ahead and zoom in for you. Okay. So we have this line we drew on. Sorry, on the front of this dress I used an orange, whatever it's called, chalk. So you can't really see it on camera, but you'll be able to see it when I do the back because I used blue. So I'm just going to make a couple stitches first. And then I'm going to start stretching this out just a touch. Really, I'm like stretching it out to the end of the fabric and then pulling the fabric taut so that the elastic is the appropriate stretchiness the whole way across. And then because I'm pulling on it, you're going to have to help pull your fabric through. So just make sure you're holding this back tight too, as with the elastic. Make sure to keep your fabric out of the way so it doesn't get caught in there. Do a couple back stitches. Okay, so now the front has the elastic on. And if I can get this turned out, you can see that that's actually gathered now along that. So we're going to do the same thing across the back. Let me find my little piece of elastic I already cut. Maybe. Okay. And I'll do this quick because my battery's starting to die. Okay, so again, hopefully you can see this one a little bit better, that blue line right there. So again, just back stitch a couple times at this beginning part here. Oh, my thread just kind of went crazy. And then I'm going to stretch it out to the length of the fabric and hold the whole thing really nice and tight, front and back. Starting it out can be a little bit tricky sometimes. I might have to... Oh, actually I got stuck. That's why. Okay. There we go. And again, I'm just holding it along that blue line. Okay, so now we have the elastic in on the front and the back. Okay, here we have the shoulders sewn together, the elastic is in on both sides. I'm going to switch my foot back to the rolled hem, and we're going to do the, oh my goodness, I'm starting to not be able to think, the armholes in a rolled hem. Little trick, if you haven't seen my other videos, to sew a rolled hem over the seam, first obviously make sure your edges line up nicely. So I'm just going to trim that one a touch, and then you need to cut the corner off down to the seam. Let me see if I can zoom in so you can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, so my seam is there. I'm just going to trim the bulk of it out of the way so it'll actually go through as a rolled hem. Otherwise it's going to get stuck on that seam when you sew your rolled hem. Here we go, just cleaning up the edges so they're nice and even. And then right where that seam is, trimming back so it doesn't get stuck. Okay. Here we go. Again, we want to do a rolled hem on the wrong side of the fabric. Fold it back a touch. Make sure your needle's in the center position. Put the fabric up through the foot. Trim the thread on the edges, and we've got a really nice edge there, curves really well. Again, I think this is the easiest way to do any sort of hem, especially with curves. You don't have to clip anything. I just love it. Okay, so now we're on the other armhole. Again, just flip that back a little bit, and your edges of that turn aren't going to match up. It's going to come in a little. that in there, needle down, foot still up so that we can wiggle the fabric in. Once the fabric's in, we're going to go around. Okay, switch back to your regular foot. So most of the edges at this point are pretty much finished off. The armholes, all of the necks, this back opening, we're going to put a button in there last. Okay, so right now, let's see, let me straighten this out so you can see. Here's the back of the dress with the front. Just pull the front down so your right sides are together. Starting at the bottom of the armholes, we're just going to sew all the way down. Again, about a 1/2 inch stitch. Your elastic might not line up absolutely perfectly, and that is okay. Trim your threads off. Missed one. Okay. Now we're going to go down the other side. Again, line them up at the bottom of the armhole. And do a 1/2 inch stitch all the way down. Oh, I think I just broke my thread. That's okay. My machine needs a tune-up pretty bad, so maybe someday. There we go. Okay. Now, after we trim these little threads off, we're going to hem the bottom. So we're just going to fold it back about 1 inch. You can iron this if you want 1 inch back, if that helps you, but I'm just going to eyeball it. If you're new to sewing, I would definitely iron it back 1 inch the whole way around. If you have a good eye for your stitch length, I wouldn't worry about it as much, unless it makes you feel safer. Alright, let's go all the way around. Oh, wrong stitch. Bumped my machine. Trim your threads. We're going to iron all that flat. I won't do that right now so we don't have to stop the camera. Alright, and then we're already on the last part. We're just going to attach a button up here and a little elastic loop. So I have some really thin elastic braid here. I gotta find the end of it. Maybe find the end of it. Here we go. Just cut like 1.5 inches, 2 inches. If you have a huge button, maybe cut it a little bit bigger. And it doesn't really matter what side you do this on, as long as you do it on the inside of the fabric. Switch to a zigzag stitch. Make it kind of thin. Like the length, you want to shorten the length. You can keep the width a little bit, probably about the same. Okay, so right now I'm just going to sew down one of it. Let me zoom in on that. Okay, so this end I'm not sewing down quite yet. I've just found it makes it a little bit easier to only do one at a time. I'm going to put the needle down there and just kind of go across with that zigzag stitch just to really hold it in place. I'm going to lift this up. Actually, I'm going to go back across it too to make sure it's really where I want it. Okay. Now I'm going to stick the other end in. And we're going to keep going and do the other side. Make sure you down stitch or back stitch them. Cut your threads. Careful not to cut your little loop you just made. Okay, so now one side has a loop. The other side we're going to put our button. I'm going to switch to a button foot. You can also hand stitch this on if you want. It's just a lot faster to use a button one. This sewing machine that I'm using does not have a buttonhole function for some reason. My other one does, but that one is out of commission. So what you want to do, line it up. There's like a center dash in the center of a button foot. You want to put it on a zigzag stitch, and you're just going to mess with the width of your zigzag until it goes to both sides. And the length of your zigzag, you actually want to switch to 0 because you don't want it to move at all. So make sure it lines up in both holes of your button. Okay, so after you've done a couple hand cranks and you know it lines up, just put your foot down. And your button is sewed on. Woohoo! My camera stopped recording. Okay, so I did a zigzag stitch. You line it up, you change the width of your zigzag. You need to set your length at 0 so it doesn't go forward or backward at all. Make sure you manually make sure that your width is the right length to hit in both buttonholes. And then just put your foot down and it'll sew your button on. Trim your thread and your dress is done. So we can turn it inside out, or right side out, sorry. There we go. And if I can get it all nice, voila! Your little elastic waist dress. You can put a little belt with it or something, or just wear it like this. I just think it's such a fun little play dress. I'd love to see how yours turn out. Send me pictures or post pictures, whatever pattern you use, like the fabric design you use. And maybe if you decorate it with some ribbons and things, I would love to see how yours turned out. Thank you for watching. If you happened to stumble upon this video and you would like to purchase the pattern, there's going to be a link down below in the description. Otherwise, thanks again for watching.